Hi, I'm Jack and welcome back to Off the Chain with Jack. So in all the years I've been crocheting, the one thing I've always been stupendously jealous of about people that can knit is the fact that they can knit socks. And I've tried to knit socks and I've just been awful at it. And so I've always tried to crochet the perfect pair of socks. But due to how crochet is, the stretch is never quite right, they don't always fit really snug, and it's just been a nightmare. And so recently I set out to design a pattern for what I thought would be the perfect comfy crochet socks. And so then the pattern for the sailor socks was born. The name of these socks, the sailor socks, came from this idea that the ribbing that is formed with the front post and back post double crochets creates this really lovely, almost fisherman's rib. And I just thought that the sailor socks kind of fit quite well. Now these socks are made in the round, starting at the toe, working all the way through to the ankle. It works in a really simple front post and back post double crochet with single crochets and half double crochets for the heel and the toe alike. They can work up really quickly, but working with 4-ply yarn does make them a little bit more tricky and fiddly. So I definitely recommend these for a more experienced beginner looking to kind of get a bit better, and then anyone kind of intermediate plus. But by all means give them a go because they do work up pretty quickly and there's only a few sort of fiddly bits when you're starting with the toe and when you're working at the heel at the here. The other thing that's really important about these socks is that they don't use a chain method for the heel itself. So it's worked as a continuous tube and then you seam up the back of the heel. One thing I always found in traditional crochet sock patterns was that you sort of would leave a gap for the heel and then fill it in at the end. And then this bit around the back of the ankle was ridiculously tight. And I used to find that really, really annoying. As I said, they're made with 4-ply, but you will need, for most sizes, 150 grams of yarn, so roughly 2 balls. Crochet just uses a bit more yarn than knitting, and that's what I found worked, and when people have tested the pattern for me, works best. The other thing to note is that actually you will need to size down. The reason for this is twofold. Shoe sizes work by making the shoe slightly larger to accommodate thick socks, normal socks, whatever. And so when you actually wear a shoe, say in a size 10, your foot is actually smaller than the shoe itself, if that makes sense. So when you're crocheting a sock, you want it to be able to fit around your foot and then inside a shoe or a slipper. And so you want to size down a whole size. So if you would typically, like me, wear a size 10, I actually make all my socks in a size 9. I've made some for some friends here. She's a size 6.5, so these are a 5.5. And it'll just mean that they fit a bit more snugly. If they stretch a bit over time, they're still going to fit and work really well. The other thing as well is I would recommend using a wool or 100% natural fibre for this. Right? Don't go and use acrylic. The reason being, they'll felt up really nicely over time and just become more and more comfortable. And when you wash them, they will probably shrink a little bit, ever so slightly, if you wash them in a normal washing cycle. And so then that way, again, they don't lose that stretch and that elasticity over time. The pattern for these is available in pretty much any UK, US, European size. And the way that it worked, like all my patterns, is by using a schematic and taking measurements. That way, you don't need to worry about tension and gauge. You can just make them and follow the measurements and you will end up with socks that fit your feet or whoever you're making them for. The schematic is available for free on my Substack, along with a full written pattern as well. That is going to be linked down below, as well as my Instagram. Please feel free to share pictures of your lovely sailor socks if you finish making them. And before I show you how to start making these socks, please remember that if you like my content, you can subscribe to my channel and my Substack completely free. My Instagram is also linked below so you can see when I release new patterns. So without further ado, I'll hand you over to the hands at the table. So for this pattern, you will need your wool of choice. I am using this signature 4-ply by the West Yorkshire Spinners. This is their colour Autumn Leaves, and I think this was actually a limited edition release for this autumn, but they have so many beautiful colours, and when it comes to making socks, this is my absolute favourite yarn to work with. It has that lovely sheepy smell that as you work with it, it just works up gorgeously. Some scissors, a darning needle for weaving in your ends right at the end, a notepad and pen so that you can make some notes on the amount of rounds you're using as you go, a 3mm and a 2.5mm hook, some stitch markers. I like to have 3 in one colour and 1 in a different colour, and the schematic that shows you the measurements for the size that you want to do, and this is available for free on my Substack and is linked below. So to get started, for any of the sizes, we start with the same amount of chains. And so we're going to start by just chaining 10 stitches. So using your 3mm hook, we're going to pop a slip knot onto the hook itself, and we're just going to chain 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I've got my 10 chains there, and we're now going to single crochet all the way back along this chain, starting with the second chain from the hook. So we're just going to single crochet all the way along. So that's a insert your hook, yarn over, pull through, and then yarn over and pull through both those loops. Single crocheting all the way along. I absolutely adore working with this wool. It is so soft, and the way it just sort of glides. This is a very high wool content, so it's a natural fibre, which is just perfect for when it comes to making socks, because it keeps them warm and snuggly, and over time they sort of felt up a bit, making them even more dense and fuzzy. So now I've got to that last chain. You should find that once you've done that last single crochet, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 stitches all the way along. And as this pattern is worked in the round, we're now going to continue round and work down the other side of the chains. But to get round to that side, we're going to place 2 more single crochets in this final chain. Now I like to do 1 right in the end into the same sort of area as that previous chain. And then what I like to do is get my tail end and sort of tuck it out the way and go in round the other side and sort of just pin it down with my finger. So take this bit slow, it might be a bit fiddly. Hold it out the way, yarn over, and do my single crochet. And that sort of just tucks it out the way a bit. And then all we're going to do is work our way all the way back along. So we've that third stitch at the end counts as our number 1. So we're going to do 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then our 9th. And our 9th stitch here mirrors that first chain that makes that first stitch in the other side. So we've got 3 into the hole at this end, and we need to make it 3 into the hole at this end. So we're going to just place an additional single crochet into that same hole. Now this sock the way that it works is it works in continuous looping rounds. So we don't actually slip stitch into our starting stitch. We're just going to keep working. And what that does is it allows us to create this really lovely seamless design. If we look at it on this one that I've already made, you can see that for the toe box here, because this is where we're starting, there's actually no seam all the way around. It's just lovely and continuous. So we've worked those extra stitches. So we've got 3 into the end here, 3 into the end here, and 8 in the middle on either side. And all we're going to do now is place our next single crochet into the top of that first chain we did that made that first stitch. Now the way that we increase is we're going to place 2 stitches into this first stitch. So we've placed the first one, and now we're going to place a second one. And what I like to do is once I've placed that second stitch, I'm going to grab a stitch marker, and because it's my first stitch, I like to use the one that is the different colour for this one, because it allows me to see where I started the round. So I know that the red is the start of my rounds, because it can be quite easy to lose track. That's why I would suggest using one that's different, or knowing which one is different for the start of your rounds. So we're now going to single crochet all along the remainder of this row until we get to the other end where we did our 3 single crochets into the end. And what this is allowing us to do by adding these increases, is it allows us to create that widening shape for your toes at the end of the sock. So single crocheted all the way along. And now I can see here I've got 1, 2, 3 that went into the end of my chain. So I'm going to place 2 stitches into this one here. And again, I'm going to take a stitch marker. If you feel confident that you can identify where you did your increases, if you may be a bit more of an experienced crocheter, don't worry about using stitch markers for all of them. Maybe use one for the start so you can identify the start of your round, because it does get a bit confusing, but feel free to not use them for the remainder of the round. I'm going to place a single crochet in my next stitch, and then I'm on the third one of this end here. So I'm going to place 2 single crochets into this next one. And pop my stitch marker in there. There we go. And then I'm going to keep working all the way along the other side, placing my single crochets. Making sure that when I get to those initial 3 stitches that are in the end here, I can see it here, I'm going to place my 2 single crochets for my increase. Now, if you get a bit confused, just remember that you should have 8 stitches. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then I'm going to place my 2. 1, 2, and pop my stitch marker in here. And this is the same for all sizes at this point. So don't worry if you're making a smaller sock or a bigger sock, all of them start the same. We're now just going to keep working in continuous rounds. So I'm going to place a single crochet in this end here. And then I can see that my next stitch is where my stitch marker is. So I'm going to pop my stitch marker out. work my 2 single crochets into there, and then pop my stitch marker back in. And then I'm going to keep working all the way down to my next stitch marker and place 2 single crochets into that stitch as well. And that's all we're going to do for now. We're just going to keep working around and around. Every time you get to one of your stitch markers, place your 2 stitches into the same stitch for your increase, and then pop your stitch marker back in. So if you want to keep just working around and around doing that, I'm going to pause the filming here, and I'll come back to you when I've done a few more rounds, and I'll show you how we use the schematic to size up. So keep working round and around, keep watching the video, and then obviously you can keep working while I explain to you, once I've done a few more rounds, how to use the schematic. So I've been continuing working round now for a few minutes. When I say a few minutes, maybe about 20 minutes. And as you can see, I've started to end up with this lovely little rectangle. Now, the way that our sock works and the way that we're going to continue to work it, and so that we understand what size we're making, is we need to obviously measure. So how we're going to do that is we're going to fold our sock along that initial crease. So you get this sort of odd little almost bowl shape. And then we're going to grab the schematic. Now, remember that we're sizing down when it comes to making our socks. So I normally wear a size 10. I'm making a size 9 for my sock. So I know that mine needs to be 11 centimeters wide. That is 11 centimeters wide from this side to this side. So I'm going to measure now and see, because when we come to finishing our increases, we only want to increase until we are 2 centimeters short of that full width. So I only want to increase until I'm at 9 centimeters. So I can see here that it's currently sitting at about 8 centimeters. So I probably want to work 1 or 2 more rounds to get it up to that 9 centimeters. And then I will be perfect and I can move on to the next step. So keep working until you get to 2 centimeters shy of the required width. So for me, that's 9 centimeters. If you're making a men's size 13.5, you might want to look at shrinking it. So you'll be at 11, so you're only 13 centimeters wide. So you'll only be wanting to go to 11. And the same on the women's sizes as well. So if you're looking at making the women's sizes, if you're doing, say, a UK 3 and you've got 9 centimeters wide, you're going to finish at 7. So I'm going to keep working and I'll come back and join you when I eventually reach that 9 centimeters, and we'll talk through the next steps. So I have been crocheting around now, continuing, and I'm going to now just measure my work. As I said, we're going to fold in half, get my tape measure, and I know, because I've already measured it before I started filming, that mine comes to 9 centimeters there, which is wonderful, exactly what I wanted. So now what you can do is remove all your stitch markers. For now, you don't need them anymore, because all we're going to do for the remainder of the toe is continue crocheting in the round with no increases at all whatsoever. Now, one thing that I do think is handy is it is useful to know where the start of your round is, because ultimately what we want to do when we eventually finish the toe box is finish halfway round at this point over here on the right hand side. So what I like to do, just so that I can kind of keep a vague track of where the start of the round is, because again, as I said, you do sort of lose it. I get my tail end, I shove my hook through, and I just pull it up through to the front. And then that way, I just know that this side is sort of roughly my start. And then I can take this stitch marker out and I can just continue going wild, crocheting all the way around. So you're just going to now keep doing those single crochets
as you were, but with no increases. Now you might ask, why do we stop 2 centimeters before our actual desired width? And one of the reasons that we do that is because even though you stopped doing those increases on every corner, the garment is still going to sort of naturally grow ever so slightly as you work around and around until it starts to now form up into a bit more of a tube shape. So just keep slowly working all the way around with those single crochets, not worrying about increasing. Another thing as a bit of a hack for next time, so that you don't have to worry about measuring if you don't want to, and you can make sure both your socks are the same size, is I would take this opportunity now to count how many stitches you've got all the way around the edge. Now I've already counted mine. I've got 56. So I'm going to write 56 in my little notebook over here, so that when it comes to making my second sock, I know I have got 56 stitches and I need to keep increasing until I get to those 56 stitches, and then I can stop. Now you might be asking yourself, when do I know when to finish the toe of my sock? When will that be obvious that it is finished? And the way that we're going to do that is it's again all part of the measurements. So when you fold your toe box in half, as we have been doing, like so, you want to make sure that your toe box is 5 centimeters in total length. Now I can see there that mine is about 3 to 3.5 centimeters at the moment. So I've got a little bit of a way to go. So I'm going to just keep going round and round and round and round until that measurement hits that 5 centimeter mark. So stop your increases, keep going round, count your number of stitches and make a note of it, and join me when we get to the point where I have done 5 centimeters, and we'll show you how we move on to making the gusset of the sock. So I have now been working around and around for a little while, and I am just going to do a little measure of the toe box of my sock. So remember, we want it to be 5 centimeters from here to here. So I'm going to grab my tape measure, make sure it's on the centimeter side. Ah, nice. And I can see that that is pretty much bob on 5 centimeters. So that's me chuffed. And I can see width-wise, it's looking at about 11 centimeters as well. So you can see when I was kind of talking about how it will continue to grow, I wasn't lying. The science works, and don't ask me what the science is. So we're now going to move on to working the gusset of the sock. Now, when we're talking about sock construction, the gusset is this section here between the toe and the heel. So it's where the arch of your foot sits. So for this section, you want to make sure that you're finishing in 2 points. You're finishing A, on the side where you had your either different coloured stitch marker, or as if you've done as I've done, you've just pulled your tail through so you can mark it that way. So you want to make sure that you're finishing over on this side so that you know you've done a full last round. And then what you want to do is lie your sock flat like we've done to just measure it, and make sure that you're finishing at roughly the halfway point. Oh, which I have sort of done bob on there, so that's handy. So I can see that I've gone into that last stitch before the fold. So we're going to just pop our hook back in and get ready to work. And so to start working the gusset, all you're going to do is slip stitch into the next stitch. So just going to insert your hook, yarn over, and pull it all the way through. So you just slip stitched in. And we're now going to do a foundation double crochet. So you're going to insert our hook again into that same stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. yarn over and pull through both those loops. We're then going to insert our hook into the latter half of that stitch, so just the one side of it, yarn over and pull through, so you've now got 2 loops on your hook again, and we're going to yarn over and pull that through, and you've done a foundation double crochet now. And now all we're going to do is work a double crochet into every single stitch all the way around. So I'm going to just work double crochets into every single stitch all the way around. So you want to pause the video here and work your double crochets into every single stitch, and then join me when we get back to the end of this round, and I'll talk you through how we then go on to build and grow the gusset of the sock. So I've continued to work all the way around, and now I've got 56 double crochets. So you want to just double check, and when you count them, you want to make sure that you've got the same amount of double crochets as you did on your row below. It's just an easy little method. And all we're going to do to finish the round is slip stitch into the top of our foundation double crochet that we did at the start of the round. There we go. And you finished the first round of the gusset of your sock. And now we're going to just continue working rows. So the rest of the sock, to get this lovely ribbing that gives it this gorgeous squidge and this warmth and the lovely texture, is worked by working front post and back post double crochets. So to work our front post double crochets, the first one is going to be a foundation front post double crochet. So we're going to take our hook and place it all the way around, in from the front, around the post and out the other side, yarn over and pull up that loop. So you've now got 2 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through both those loops, yarn over, insert your hook into half of that stitch like we did with that foundation double crochet of the round before. 2 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through both of them. And now we're going to work a back post double crochet around the next stitch. So we insert our hook from the back to the front and out the back again. Yarn over, pull up. So we've got 3 loops on our hook like a normal double crochet, and work it like a normal double crochet. Then a front post double crochet, inserting our hook from the front through, yarn over, pull through, and then work it like a double crochet. So we're going to just continue to work this round of front post and back post double crochets until we are all the way back round to where we started. So just continue to work those front post and back post double crochets all the way around. And if you pause the video here, I will meet you back where we started. So I have been working my front post and back post double crochets all the way around. And because I have an even number of stitches, I've got 1 front post back double crochet and 1 back post double crochet left. And you want to finish your round with a back post double crochet. So you really do want to have an even number of stitches. If you have got an odd number of stitches and you are going to find out that you are going to finish your round with a front post double crochet, do not worry. All you need to do is yarn over and then do a back post double crochet 2 together. And the way that you do that is you insert your hook from the back, and then instead of just going around 1 stitch, you're just going to go around both stitches. And that will just pull them both together. And then it means that you can finish that round with a back post double crochet. But I've actually got 2 stitches left because, like I said, I had 56 stitches, which is an even number. So I'm going to do my front post double crochet and then my back post double crochet. And then I'm just going to finish the round by slip stitching into the top of that foundation front post double crochet that we did right at the start of the round. And now for the remainder of our rounds of the gusset, all you're going to do is keep working those front post and back post double crochets. So I'm going to work a foundation front post double crochet. At the start of every round, it is just a foundation front post double crochet. And then I'm going to work a back post double crochet, and then a front post double crochet, and then a back post double crochet, and then a front post double crochet. So continue working these rounds of front post and back post double crochets and slip stitching into the start, starting each round with a foundation front post double crochet, and keep working. Now, you might be asking me, Jack, when will I know when to stop? And this is a very good question. So obviously, when working our sock, we have to start the heel at some point. So we only obviously want to work this amount of space for that arch of the foot, the gusset. So if we look at the schematic, I am making a UK size 9. So I need mine to be 11 centimetres wide, which we've already achieved, but I want it to be 26 centimetres long. So that is this measurement from here to here. Now, when it comes to making the heel of the sock, obviously we need to stop and change what we're doing. So to know when to change, all you're going to do is take that measurement. So for me, it's that 26 centimetres, and I'm going to minus 8 off of it. So for me, that means I want 18 centimetres. So I'm going to keep working these front post and back post double crochet rounds until my sock measures a total of 18 centimetres in length. So for me, that is a good way off yet. But I'm going to keep going. And one thing that will really benefit you and help make you so that when you're making a pair of socks, you've got 2 even socks, is keep a little tally of how many rounds you've done so far. So I've done that 1 round of double crochets, and then I've got a second round of the front post and back post, and I've just started my 3rd round. So I'm going to make a little tally in the corner of my notebook for 3 rounds so far. And as I keep going, I'm going to make another little note for every round I do. And that means that when it comes to making your second sock, you don't really have to worry about measuring it. You just have to do this step for the same amount of rounds so that you end up with an even pair. So keep working that round, doing those front post and back post double crochets. As we've said, slip stitching in at the end and doing that foundation stitch to start. And I will come back to you when I have hit that 18 centimetres that I need. But remember, it's 8 centimetres off of whatever length you're looking to do off of the schematic. So if you're making one that's 23 centimetres long, then you're going to want it to be 15 centimetres in length and all of that sort of thing. Use a calculator if you want. Ask Siri. It's really up to you. So keep working that, and I will join you when I have got mine to that 18 centimetre length. So I have been continuing to work my rounds of the front post and back post double crochet. And as you can see in the top left, I've been making a little tally as I go. And this is my 26th round. So now I know when I repeat the other sock that I need 26 rounds, including that first round of double crochet. So it's 25 of the front post and back post plus the foundation-y type row. 26 altogether. That is how long the gusset of my sock needs to be, and it saves me from measuring, because I now know that this 26 gives me that 18 centimetres roughly that I was looking for, which is that 8 centimetres less than my overall 26 centimetres. So now we want to start looking at doing the heel for the sock, or in the knitting world called turning the heel. And as you can see here, we end up with this really nice sort of reinforced stitch for the heel. This is just half double crochet. And then obviously the main body of the sock continues up. Now the way that we achieve this is by adding increases in at the front of the sock here, whilst doing half double crochets on half of the sock for the heel. So the first thing that we need to do is really know what half of our total stitch count is. So I know that I've got 56 stitches all the way around. And so whatever your total number of stitches all the way around is, we're going to halve it. So for me, that's 28 stitches all the way around. So I know I've got 28 stitches in half my sock, and the way that we work the heel is we're actually going to work almost in two halves, the front of the sock and then the heel itself. So I'm going to count along and place from my first stitch, which will be this front post foundation as normal, and I'm going to count 28 stitches to make sure that I've got to the other half of the sock, and then I'm going to place a stitch marker just so that I know where that side is. So I always quite like working with front post and back post double crochet like this because it's quite easy to count. I know that that's number 1, so I know that the down sort of in of the rib here is number 2. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28. I know that this in stitch here is my last one, and so I'm going to place my stitch marker just after it. Why I didn't use that little red one is beyond me. So remember, yours will not be 28. It will be half of whatever your total stitch count is all the way around. So to get going, we're going to do on this first round of the heel increase, starting as normal, our foundation, front post, double crochet, as we've done on every other round. And now we're going to have to add in that increase. So to do that, all we're going to do is simply place 2 double crochets into the space between our foundation stitch and the next back post double crochet. So directly into this gap here, I'm just going to place 2 double crochets. And then I'm going to continue to work the round exactly as normal until I get to that stitch marker. So I'm going to do a back post double crochet and a front post double crochet and a back post double crochet and a front post double crochet. And so when you look at this starting section of this heel turn round, you'll see that you've got your foundation, 2 double crochets, and then you start your repeat of the front post and back post double crochets. So if you want to continue working those front post and back posts until you get to your stitch marker for halfway round, and join me back here, pause the video if you wish, and we will talk through increasing the other side and then what to do for the rest of the heel. So I've worked my way across, and I can see now that I've got my stitch marker here, and I've just got that last back post double crochet to do. But we need to obviously increase on this side as well to keep it even. And so all we're going to do is exactly the same as before. We're going to place 2 double crochets into the space before that last stitch of this front half. So that's 2 double crochets into that gap. And then I'm going to do my final back post double crochet of the front half of this round. And that's it. You've done the first half of this round. Now we're going to move on to working this heel section. So obviously we work in the same continuous rounds, but we're doing a different type of stitch. So for the heel itself, we're going to do half double crochets. So the first half double crochet we're going to do, I'm going to remove this stitch marker so that you can see where I'm working. I'm going to place the first half double crochet directly into the gap between the next front post double crochet that we would have done if we were continuing as normal and the back post that we've done. Now, quite often you'll see that people work through the top loop of a stitch, but for the sake of this pattern, to give the heel a bit more of a robust structure, we're going to actually just work directly under the whole stitch. Now, this wouldn't be the typical gap we would work into for this stitch. Normally you would work into the gap after the stitch, but if we don't, we end up with a bit of an odd gap here. And so the way that we're going to combat that is we're going to do our half double crochet into that first gap as normal. So yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over and pull through, and then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on your hook. And then what we're going to do is we're going to work a half double crochet 2 together in the next 2 stitches for the gap. So this means that essentially what we're doing is we're not actually increasing on this side because we're adding that extra stitch in off of that first one. So by working this half double crochet 2 together, we're combating that. We're adding one in and taking one away exactly the same time. So we're going to yarn over, insert our hook into the next gap, yarn over and pull through. Then we're going to insert our hook directly into the next gap, yarn over and pull through. You've got 4 loops on your hook. We're now just going to yarn over and pull through all 4 loops on your hook. We'll do that again, just so that you can see. We're going to yarn over, insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over and pull through. Then you're going to insert your hook straight into the next gap stitch as well, yarn over, pull through 4 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through. And we're then just going to continue to work half double crochets into every gap from here to the end of the round. So if you want to just keep working those half double crochets, remember you're not going into the top of the stitch, you're going directly under the whole thing. All the way around. So I'm just coming up now and I can see I've got 2 left. So I'm going to do that last half double crochet right in the end. And that goes in this gap between the last stitch of the previous round and our foundation. And if you wanted to be extra certain you've got the right amount of stitches, your half number, so for me, I know that's 28, should be the exact amount of half double crochets you've got. So for me, I should have 28. So I've got 1 here, I can see, 2, that's my 2 together that we did, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There we go. And that's because we've added that extra one in, but we've also took it away with that 2 together. And to finish the round, we're just going to slip stitch into the top of that foundation front post double that we did. So to start the next round and to continue working the heel, you're always going to start with that foundation front post double crochet. Now it can get a bit tight here, so just be a bit confident. Get your hook in there, round that foundation of the previous row to do your foundation front post double. And so now we're going to work those increased stitches that we added in on the previous round. So the reason that we add in 2 is so that we can keep the repeat going. So if we'd only add in 1, it would mess up our repeat all the way around. But because we added in 2, we know that we can add in a back post, a front post, and then we'll be back into working our normal back post double crochet. So we're going to work a back post double crochet, and this bit can be a little bit tight when you're doing it each time. So just take your time, and then a front post around the second additional stitch we added in. And then this round, we're not adding in any additional stitches. We only add in stitches every other round. So now we're going to work a back post double crochet in that next stitch as normal. And then a front post double crochet in the next stitch as normal. And so if you want to continue working those front posts and back posts as normal, all the way until you get to your next lot of increased stitches. And we'll work those together. So I'm just coming up to those 2 increases that we added in the previous round. So I've got my normal front post double there, and now I'm going to add in a back post double round one of those new stitches, and then a front post double round the second one, and then a back post double round that final stitch. And now I'm at the back to start working the heel of the sock. So we're going to continue and switch back to our half double crochets. So remember, we're going into this first gap here and we're doing a half double crochet. Now, to keep it a bit more uniform, rather than adding in our two together as these 2 second stitches on every round, we're going to shift it along as we go. So we're actually going to do a half double crochet in the next stitch. And then we're going to do our 2 together. So we're going to yarn over, and we can see our 2 together of the previous round just here. So we're going to yarn over and insert our hook, making sure to go all the way under, yarn over and insert our hook into the second stitch, 4 loops on our hook, yarn over and pull through. And then we're just going to continue as normal, doing our half double crochets all the way back round to the start of the round, making sure to go all the way under. Now, because you've done your half double crochets in the round before, they are obviously a shorter stitch, so you just want to be careful, make sure you're getting under all of the stitch itself, not just going through that top loop. And we're now coming up to the end of the round. And one thing you want to make sure is that you're definitely getting your 28 stitches in. So we've got 1 in the end there. And then it kind of gets a bit tight towards the end, but make sure you get it in. You can see that half double crochet we did on the previous round and our foundations here. You want to make sure you're getting into that gap right at the end. And if you're unsure if you've done it, count your stitches, because remember, you should have exactly half the amount you started with. So for me, that's 28. So if you want to make a little note of whatever that half number was, and then you're going to slip stitch in to the foundation of your previous round. Now, one thing that I like to do as well is I will label this tally here my gusset, and then I'm going to start another one and call it heel. And so I know I've done 2 heel rounds so far, and that means that as I work the heel, I'll make a little tally of how many heel rounds I do, so that I know I will have the same amount when I make my second sock. So now we've completed 2 rounds. What I'm going to do is I'm going to work a couple more with you so you can see how the repeat builds up. So we're going to start with that foundation front post double crochet. Now, like I said before, it does get a little bit tight, so make sure you're going down the side of that half double that you did to finish the previous round, and then pulling up your stitch. Now, we didn't add in any additional stitches on the previous round, so we're going to add in 2 here. We alternate between adding in stitches on a round and not adding in stitches on a round. So for this one, we're going to add them in exactly the same place between that foundation front post double and that first back post double. 2 double crochets just straight into that gap. And then, as we've done before, we're just going to work the rest of the half of this round as normal with those back post double crochets and those front post double crochets. So continue working those front post and back posts, and what I'll do is I'll join you when we're adding in those increases. Here we go. So I've just got a few stitches left. My last front post double, and then I know that the next stitch is a back post double and it's my last stitch, so I'm going to pop my 2 extra double crochets in between these 2 stitches, and then I'm adding in that last back post double crochet. So I've added in 2 stitches at the end and 2 stitches at the beginning. And now we're going to work our half double crochets for the remainder of the round. Remember, we're popping that 1 right in that gap at the start. And then we're going to add in our next half double crochet. And we can see there that we did our next half double crochet next. And the way that we keep this, again, neat and tidy, is that we're going to move it along one lot of stitches. So I've done another half double crochet, and it's quite nice and easy to remember. I'm on the third round, so I've done 3 half double crochets before I do my 2 together. So I'm going to yarn over, and I remember I've got those 4 loops on my hook, and pull it through all 4. And so on the 4th round, I'll do 4 half double crochets and then do the 2 together. And on the 5th round, 5, and so on, and keep moving it that way. And then I'm just going to continue doing my half double crochets like normal across the remainder of the heel. And then if you want to double check at the end, remember you should have that half number that you started with. So for me, that's 28, but for you, it'll be whatever your stitch count was when you started, halved. So I had 56 stitches when I started, and that means that's 28 across the heel consistently. So I'm going to keep going, and I'll join you when we finish this round, and we'll do another round together, and then I'll leave you to go it alone. And we're back, finishing up the last couple of half double crochets. Remember that we have to go in after that last one, and like I said, it can be a little bit tight, so just be patient and work with it. And now I'm going to do that slip stitch into the top of that first foundation front post double, and then we're going to start the round in exactly the same way we do every other round, which is with that foundation front post double. And then we made those 2 new double crochets on the last round. And so we're going to back post around the first one, front post around the second one, and then continue working those back post, front post, back post, front post, all the way until you get to the increased stitches that you added in on the other side. Now, while I'm working these, I'll talk you through how to know when you've done enough stitches and enough rounds for your sock. So it works in a couple of ways. Remember that you are trying to hit the length that was listed on the schematic for your size. So for me, that is 26 centimeters. So I want to try and hit 26 centimeters. Now we did 18 because we took 8 off of that number to make sure we had enough space to add the heel in. So I'm going to just every now and then check to see how close to that I'm getting. The other thing to note is you want your front post and back post double crochets on the front to eventually equal the same amount you had in one full round of the gusset. So you're increasing from half of the size that you originally had because you worked half of the sock in the front post and back posts, and you're wanting to increase that to the same number you started with. So for me, I had 28 stitches. My full round is 56. So I want to increase this side here that I'm working now from 28 to 56 by working the alternate rounds in the way that we have done. Now you might find that you get to the 56 or your total number before you complete the additional 8 centimeters for the full heel. If you do, just keep working rounds without any increases until you hit that full length that you need. So I'm just finishing up this first half here, coming into land on those additional stitches we added in. And all that I am going to do is continue with them in the same pattern. So This here is my first one of the increase. I'm going to do that back post double crochet, and then that front post double crochet, and then finish off with a back post double crochet. And then we're going to start working those half doubles as we've done before. So I'm going to insert into that first section there, half double crochet. Continue working all the way along, slow and steady. And remember, we're shifting that 2 together over one more. So I'm now working the 4th round. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. And now I do my 2 together. And then I continue working all the way along to the end of the round. And as the other side increases, this side with the half double crochets should always remain the exact same number of stitches. So whatever that half number of your total amount all the way around that you started with was, this side would always remain the same. So for me, that is 28 all the way across, and it will always be 28 until I am finished. So I'm going to keep working. I've got one last one. Remember that you need to get right in that gap after that last one. It might look a bit tight, but just remember, trust your instincts. And if you need to count, just count all your stitches to make sure. And I'm going to slip stitch into that last one, into that first stitch of the previous round, that first foundation. So I have now got 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 32, 34, 36 stitches all the way across that front, and still 28 at the back. So you want to keep working these increase rounds. So you're going to add in 2 double crochets in the next round, and then the round after you work them to add them into the front post and back post pattern. Then the round after you're going to add in 2 new stitches. Keep working and measuring as you go. So for instance, me now, I can measure up. I've got a total length of about 20 centimeters. So I've got a good way that I still want to go before I reach that 26 goal. So just keep working. I'm going to keep adding in my increase rounds. And remember, once you get to that total number across the front, just keep going without any increase rounds until you get to that additional 8 centimeters to get your full length, until you get the full length that you need of the sock. So I'm going to go away and keep working my rounds until I finish the increases I need for the heel. And then I'll show you how we close up the heel and continue on up with the ankle of the sock. So I've just finished up my last half double crochet, and I'm slip stitching into that first foundation double crochet from that first foundation front post double crochet that I did. And now I'm just going to lay out my sock. Now I do find it useful to just sort of give it a bit of a wiggle and a pull, just to make sure that everything's flush and flat before you measure. I'm going to measure up now, and I think I'm about there. Yes, 26 centimeters. Lovely. So I've now achieved the length of my sock. Now, for me, that was 15 rounds. And I actually ended up doing increases all the way up. But then I just did 1 extra round of normal stitches without doing the increase to get that 26 centimeter length. So if you hit your desired amount, which for me was 56 stitches, all the way around this first half, then you know that what you want to do to keep going until you get to the right length that you want. So again, for me, that was that 26 centimeters. you're going to want to just keep working the rounds without doing any increases. So I've done that. I've got to my 26 centimeters. And now we're going to close up the heel and turn the heel itself. So this is where we actually now are going to work almost a German short row. If you've ever made like a raglan style jumper, it's a bit like that. So if you flip over the sock, you can see that essentially on the back, you end up with this sort of dip in the heel where the back is actually shorter than the front, and that's because our half double crochets are slightly shorter than the front post and back post we're doing. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn our work as I have just done. So we've been working this way. We're going to turn our work and we're going to perform another row of half double crochets all the way back along. So I'm going to do, to start with, a foundation single crochet, just to be able to pull up that stitch to have something there for my first stitch. And now I'm going to work half double crochets all the way along. And I'm not going to worry about putting that half double crochet 2 together in on this row. I'm just going to do my normal half double crochets all the way along. And as you can see in the top left of my screen, I've actually been keeping a little tally of how many rounds I did for the heel. So for me, it was 15 rounds, so that when I come to make the next sock, or if I want to make some more for myself in a different color, I don't have to worry about using measurements. I just know that I need to do 15 heel rounds and I'll be there. So it's worth doing because it will make your life easier going forward. You can just, jot it down in the notes app in your phone or something. It's entirely up to you, but it will just make your life a bit easier. And it'll mean that in theory, you end up with 2 nice uniform socks. So I'm just coming up to the end of this row. And I've worked those half double crochets all the way back along, and the last one I'm going to place right in the end between the front post or back post double that we do with the normal round and my half double crochet. So for me, I've got 1 here and then 1 more to go in here. Wonderful. And now all that you're going to do, and this might sound a bit crazy, is shove your hand inside your sock, turn it inside out, and then we are going to slip stitch this whole bit together. So the way that I do that is I go to this first foundation single crochet I did, and I pop my hook in there. And then I pop my hook into the top of the last stitch I did. Now, you know how normally before we were going under the whole stitch? For the sake of slip stitching it together, just go into the top little loop. It just gives you a bit more, makes it a bit less bulky inside the heel. And so I'm just going to slip stitch all the way along, slip stitching those 2 sides together. And into the next one. And into the next one. And I'm going to just keep going all the way down. And as you move down, I love doing stuff like this because it's so therapeutic and it feels like you're sort of finishing off. Do you know what I mean? It feels very like nice and final. You've finished a step of the make. So you've actually now officially, once done this, turned the heel and finished the heel, and the rest of the sock is really nice and simple. It's just working a tube all the way around. So we're coming up to the end. Here we go. I've got a couple left. Now, as you get up to the end, it can be a little bit tricky because obviously the stitches get really close together. So just have a bit of confidence. And I always say, if in doubt, do one more. So there we go. I've done that last one. And now I'm going to fasten off and cut the end of my yarn. And I like to leave a fairly reasonably long tail just because I think it's way easier for when it comes to weaving in your ends. And then I'm going to shove my hand back inside the sock, turn it the right way around, flip that heel through, you've got a lovely closed up heel there, and you've got something that sort of resembles a sock. So to get started, we're going to just pop a slip knot onto our hook, and we can just stick our hook under the post of that foundation stitch as we've been doing in all our previous rounds. But what happens then is we end up with a bit of a gap because our last back post double crochet of the round is all the way over here. And so it means that we sort of end up with this big skippy gap in the middle. And you can just use the tail end of your yarn after you're finished to sort of tie it up and weave it in. But if you don't want to, and you want to be a bit clever, which I always like doing because also sewing is just never that fun, I like to insert my hook into the gap between that last back post double crochet of the round and the end and the join, and then insert my hook round that round the post of that foundation stitch, and then perform my foundation front post double crochet. So you're going to just make sure that you pull it under both stitches. And then because it's our foundation one, it can sometimes be a bit tricky working it. There we go. And then I'm just going to work my foundation stitch. Lovely. And then I'm just going to continue round, back post double crochet, front post double crochet, all the way around. If you want to count as you go to make sure you've got your right amount, remember I had 56 on the tube of the foot for the gusset here. I want to have 56 on the round as we work here. So I'm going to just keep going round doing my front post and back post double crochets. And if you keep working as you go, if you want to pause the video here, I will meet you at the end of the round where I'll show you how we join it. It's the same as always, but obviously it will look a bit different as we sort of skip over that heel area. So we'll do that together. And then I'll talk you through how you can finish off the rest of the ankle for the sock, and we'll go from there. So pause the video here, keep working your front posts and back posts, and we'll join back up in a second. So I've been working all the way around in my front post and back posts as normal, and I've counted to check, and I'm definitely going to do the 56. So I'm just working into that last back post double crochet, and now I'm going to slip stitch into the top of my foundation that we did on the previous round. There we go. And now you'll see it looks a bit funky, that first one we did, because it's sort of stretched in a bit of a triangle underneath. So don't worry too much. Just do your foundation on the next round all the way around that post. Pull up your loops. Remember, keep it a little bit loose if you want to. And then continue working your rounds all the way around. So, how long do you make the ankle of your sock? You're maybe asking. Well, the general rule that I go for is however many rounds of the gusset there were. So for me, that was 26. I'm going to work 26 rounds, and then I'm going to do 2 more rounds with a slightly smaller hook, and that is what our 2mm hook is for. So I'm going to do 26 rounds and then a couple of rounds with the 2mm hook, and that will be my sock. Now, obviously, you can make these longer, you can make them shorter, you can do whatever you want. So it's up to you. But if you wanted a uniform looking sock like this one, then I think that it works quite nicely with the gusset and this bit of the ankle being similar in length. So it's, do you know what I mean? You can sort of see that there. There we go. So it's up to yourselves. You can obviously do as much or as little as you want. I'm going to work 26 more rounds. Well, 26 rounds total, sorry, of these front post and back post double crochets. And then I'm going to do 2 with the smaller hook to just cinch it in a little bit. So it's up to you. But if you work as many rounds as you want, and I will come back to you when I change hooks. So I'm just finishing up the 26th round of the ankle of my sock. I've done 26 rounds all along here, which is the same as my gusset. And I think it just kind of helps the sock look quite nice and even. And I've found that it goes up the ankle quite a nice way. Now, if you want to do more or less, you're more than welcome to. What I'm now going to do, and this is completely an optional step really, is I like to switch to a hook size that is 0.5 millimeter down. So I switched to a 2.5 millimeter hook. And all I'm going to do now is complete 2 more rounds of my front post and back post double crochets, starting with that foundation front post double, because what I find is it just sort of helps tighten up the top of your sock so that they don't necessarily fall down as much. So if you want to do this step, you're more than welcome to. If not, then you're more than welcome to just fasten off and weave in all your ends. But I'm going to do 2 more rounds with this 2.5 millimeter hook, and then I will come back to you. So I have been working for 2 rounds now with my 2.5 millimeter hook, and I'm just finishing up the second one. One thing to note is when you're doing the second round, because your stitches are obviously a bit tighter and shorter because you're working with a smaller hook, it is a bit more fiddly, so do just have that patience with yourself. You are nearly at the end. The home straight is in sight. Here we are. Now my last stitch. I always love doing that last stitch of a project. And then I'm going to just slip stitch into that foundation. And fasten off. And there you have it. Go away and weave in all your ends. I turn the sock inside out, weave in all my ends, and then you have got a lovely, gorgeous, finished sock. Now, if you're making a pair, go away and make the other one. And if you use your tally that you've done for the heel and the gusset so that you can make sure that they're exactly the same size and note how many stitches you did for the round for the toe, then you'll be laughing. You probably won't even have to do any measurements really. So I hope you've enjoyed the pattern.
These would make a fantastic Christmas present. As you can tell, I've already put my Christmas tree up. So happy Christmas from me to you. Remember, please subscribe to my channel. Follow me on Instagram. You can also subscribe to my Substack. Again, it's free. And if you enjoyed this video, please like and share it with anyone that you think would love it. Bye.